I do pretty well with names, but my wife Holly is better. I think that I could do most everyone's name here, but I would probably still miss a few, even if you've told me your name 3 or 4 times, and that mistake would forever lower your opinion of me, so I won't try. I remember reading an article back in 2012 about Mitt Romney when he was campaigning for president. By all accounts, Romney was a good man. The only blot on his character was that road trip he took with Seamus the dog on the roof of his family vehicle. That really stuck. What different times that was. But the article that I read talked about Romney on the campaign trail, and the journalist noted that Romney had a tendency to try and guess about the relationships of people he would meet. So, for example, he would meet an older man and a younger woman and say, "So you've brought your daughter, how wonderful," before the two of them could explain that they were actually a couple. I'm sure that sometimes Romney would guess right and that this would be gratifying, but personally I found that it's just not worth the risk to guess. I've done that before when I thought I knew someone's name. In fact, I just did it 2 minutes before this service. Even though I had written this sermon, I said, "You're Derek, it's great to have you back." And he said, "I'm Darren." So I don't think it's worth the risk. I shouldn't have done it because a person's name, Dale Carnegie says, a person's name to that person is the sweetest and most important sound in all the English language. So you can see how bad it is when you get a person's name wrong. Every Sunday when Hank is passing out bulletins, he'll rib me a little bit and say, "Oh, you new here? What's your name? Peter?" And I like this very much. It keeps the pastor humble. So our story today is another story about Jesus appearing to the disciples after the resurrection. 2 weeks ago was Easter. We told the story of Mary Magdalene encountering the risen Christ outside the tomb. You remember that. Mary is distraught and sleepless. She's looking for her friend, but his body is not there, and a man appears behind her. He looks like the gardener until he says her name, Mary. And in that instant, she recognizes him. "Rabboni," she says, and she runs toward him and wraps her arms around him, and he says, "Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father." Last week was another story, the story of doubting Thomas. Jesus had previously appeared to all the other disciples and shown them the wounds in his hand and his side, but Thomas wasn't there. And he says, "I will not believe it until I put my fingers in his hand and I put my hand in his side." Jesus appears to Thomas and says, "Thomas, see, touch, believe. Put your hands here. Put your hands here." So this week, they're fishing. They're all in the boat. A man encounters them on the shore. Fish biting? They're not. So Jesus gives them a bit of advice. Toss your nets on the other side. And at this point, it's understandable that the disciples don't recognize him because he's so far away. But the moment their nets get full, they put it together. "It is the Lord," they say. This brings us back to the story we heard in February from Luke's gospel when Jesus calls all the disciples and they're fishing and their nets get so full that they begin to burst and the boat begins to sink. And this time Peter says, "Get away from me, Lord, for I'm a sinful man." Well, this time when it happens, Peter is so excited. And this is my favorite part of the story. According to John, up to that point, Peter had been buck naked in the boat, which for the record is a perfectly fine swimming outfit. But when he sees that it's the Lord and he decides to jump in the water, for whatever reason, he puts on his clothes. I think James Tissot got that wrong because it looks like he's disrobing here, but it's the other way. So he jumps in, runs to Jesus. Everybody comes to shore. There is a fire, there is bread, there is fish, but no one dares to ask him, "Who are you?" It's a really unusual scene Because the gang has all gotten back together, but something is different. It's clear that Jesus' status among them has changed. There's a difference to him, a distance, as if his status has changed around the Sea of Tiberias or the entire Roman Empire or planet Earth or the whole cosmos. None of the disciples ask him, "Who are you?" Maybe they realize how woeful that question would have appeared next to the creator of the universe. In the book of Exodus, we meet Moses, who grows up in the court of Pharaoh and then one day kills an Egyptian. Moses flees to the wilderness for a few years before God encounters him in a burning bush. God commands Moses, "Take off your shoes, the ground you are standing on is holy." And God tells Moses, "I have heard the cries of my people Israel, toiling under the whip of Pharaoh. I will deliver them with a mighty hand." Moses is trembling. He's told that he is the one to lead them out of slavery. And Moses says, "Who should I say has sent me?" God says, "Tell them, I am who I am." So how do you say, "Who are you?" to the one who is who he is? I guess it would be like me asking Hank for his credentials to pass out bulletins in the breezeway. So who are you? Who are you? That's the big question for our time. It's one that we're supposed to sort out through introspection and therapy and preferred pronouns and honorifics and titles. And all of that is fine and well. Who are you? I'm a minister, a father. Who are you? A grandma, a grandpa? Who are you? In the prime of life, working hard? Who are you? Retired? Who are you? Confused, lost? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you to ask, you might think? Sometimes all these questions are the problem. Who are you? How are you feeling? Let's talk. What were you thinking? What do you want to do? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? All these questions sometimes don't give a person space to think, to be undecided, to sort things out for themselves, to speak out when they are ready to speak out. So I think the disciples' humility and reticence in this story is wonderful. I love that they don't dare to ask Jesus, "Who are you?" I love that there is this distance between Jesus and the disciples, this wonderful unfamiliarity. Sometimes people think that distance is a problem in relationships. Distance is a problem. We need to talk more. We need to share more. We need to share everything. But sometimes it is a lack of distance that is the problem. It's a lack of boundaries. It's people getting too comfortable with people they know too well and acting in ways they would never act with people they didn't know quite so well. We see the danger of this in churches or in our faith lives too. Sometimes the most dangerous people are those people who speak for God, as if there is no distance between their mind and the Almighty's. So who are you? Well, it might not be any of our business. You could say, "I am who I am," or "I will be who I will be." So with this, there's an awful lot of discussion about identity, and it is a great sadness the extent to which some people's identities inspire tremendous rage or hatred in others. So we talk a lot about identity, and at the very best, it's exhausting, and at the very worst, it's unchristian. Because who are you? Well, each of you is a child of God. Each person is created in the image of God, and this sort of nullifies the need for us to self-identify. You're a child of God. Who are they? They're a child of God too. Have you ever had an encounter with someone that you don't know and you ascribe angelic or divine status to that person? Or have you ever heard someone talk this way? Even though I'm a pastor, this isn't really how I speak about the world, but sometimes people do. Once upon a time, there were stories like this, moments where someone would be driving at night and they'd get a flat tire and they'd be stuck, and a stranger would drive up, help them with the tire, and go on their way. Who was that? Or you might find yourself out in the city, late at night, at a loss for self-consciousness, until a kind stranger guides you to your doorstep. Who were they? Or you might lose your child on the playground, every second feeling like an hour. Where are they? Where are they? Where are they? Where are they? Until a kind stranger guides your child back to you. Who were they? Now you could say, oh, it's nothing. We didn't ask them their name. We didn't have proof. It's nothing. You could say that. But I'd like to get better at this. I would like to be sitting in a boat after fishing all night and catching nothing, totally lost and stuck in life. And I would like to hear a stranger give me directions for a new way of being. And I'd like to follow those directions and see them change my life. And I'd like to not even ask the stranger, who are you? Because they would be the Lord. They would be the Lord.